Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And it's been a while, but I figure I'd knock out a few, even though only a few people are watching, because I enjoy it. Today's band is The Table. And as I mentioned before, there's some bands that are so good that the fact that they only have one or two singles out makes them thoroughly worthy. And The Table out of Cardiff, Wales are a great example of that. They came out of Cardiff, Wales, at least in the public eye, in 1977 with the release of the Virgin single "Do the Standing Still." And apparently it was recorded as a demo as early as 75, and then got put out in 77. And it really gels well with the punk movement when it finally did come out. But a close listen to the A and B side of their first single shows that they were another beast altogether. And so the band was Russell Young on vocals and guitars, keyboards, and bass, Tony Barnes on guitar and bass, Len Lewis on drums, and Mickey O'Connor on guitar. And they actually started out in 1971, which is pretty shocking. They finally got a record out 6 years later. But when in 71 they were called the John Stabber, and then in 1972 they called themselves Do You Want This Table, which even in 1972 is a pretty bizarre name for a band. So they've already got my interest there. And then they even played the Windsor Free Fest in 1974 as Do You Want This Table? And then by 75 they recorded the demo of Do the Standing Still. And I guess they got signed to Virgin, but the people at Virgin weren't terribly excited in a way because they weren't sure what they were getting. And the single did really well. Made a lot of top lists of new singles in '77, and they did some notable gigs with the Police and XTC and Susie and the Banshees and Wire and Radio Stars. So they're playing with all the right bands, and I think they're very compatible with XTC particularly. But they quickly got dropped by Virgin. Then they managed to put out a second single in 1978 on the more independent Chiswick record called Sex Sells, and they were down to a trio by then, and it's equally bizarre, but not quite as progressive as that first single. And the Do the Standing Still was the A side of the Virgin single, and the B side was called The Magical Melon of the Tropics. And it's really stunning. It's got some real prog moves to it with some great guitar and keyboard interplay. And I guess they continued to play after they got dropped by both labels, and their material got less commercial and more offensive all along. And they kept at it up until 1980 with fluctuating lineups. And three members later showed up in a band called Flying Colors, a EP called Abstract Art in 1981, and it bears some affinity to the work by The Table. But I have to say that it's one of my favorite singles of that era. As I mentioned, they kind of are compatible with the punk era and definitely have some affinities to XTC. But when I listen to it, not only is it really brilliant, jarring, angular riff could do the standing still, but it's very catchy and memorable as well. Has a somewhat of a pop sensibility, and I would love to have heard a whole album of their material. It would have been stunning, and I don't know if there's something in the can or not. And I'd definitely be interested in the fact that they continue to get less commercial and more offensive, and I'd really, really love to hear that. But the best way I can characterize it is both in the vocals and the guitar sounds and some of the oblique arrangements and everything. It kind of reminds me of an outtake from Eno's "Here Come the Warm Jets," and I know those are big words, but that's how they strike me. So I highly recommend. I'll put a link below to the single, but you really got to check them out. They're really something to hear, and just one single, and they're one of my very favorite bands of that era. So there you have it, The Table. Check them out. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.